Good evening, everybody. Hope you've all had a fantastic first day of April. My name is Sensei Bronson Long. This is my instructor, Master Autry. And you have joined into another episode of Honest Concepts Podcast, where we discuss more than just our walk through martial arts, but more importantly, our walk together in life.
Absolutely.
So, I've been training in martial arts with you since I was about 15 years old. Mm-hmm. And we've come to a place now where I get the pleasure to be able to sit down with you and hear your thoughts about things more than just, punching and kicking. We get to learn things about you for real cool. life. And it's been a pleasure so far. And we've had a lot of fun doing this with viewers and people coming and hanging out with us. Every week, we have a new topic.
Exactly.
Something to talk about our thoughts and experiences.
And we didn't pick this one.
We didn't do this one. That's what's interesting about this, is that this is our first topic we'll be able to do that came in from a live viewer. Mm-hmm. And all I understand is they were wanting to talk about managing emotions, for good, bad, or for worse.
Wow.
And since last week I went first, this one's on you.
Okay, I'll go first. We talked about this last week, and I did a lot of thinking about students and people that I've dealt with through the life. First thing I came up with for me is remember that emotions are temporary. Mm. They don't usually last very long. They're temporary. As people and as instructors, as you are also, we look, and even in everyday life, we look and say that we need to chase the purpose, not the emotion. We have to chase the purpose and not the emotion. Let me give you an example. Let's just say, Ms. Autry says, tonight for dinner, excuse me, guys, allergies still got them. Tonight for dinner, I feel like having cereal and banana. I'm like, okay, I'll go to the store and get it, right?
Right.
Like dinner. So I get up there, and my purpose, and I'm going to chase, is go get bananas and cereal. So I get out of the car, up at the food line. Guy runs real fast, almost runs into me, walking across the street to get there. Blows the horn, and he cusses me out, he yells at me, and I'm getting all upset, As a human, you're like, man. I walk in and get those 2 bananas, and I get that cereal. I come back home. I tell Miss Autry, man, this guy, she's really. I said, yeah, man, it just made me so aggravated. She says, these bananas are rotten.
Oh.
I was like, oh. So what happened was,
wow.
I didn't chase the purpose anymore. I chased the emotion. I let the emotion get to me. The purpose, my only purpose was to go get 2 bananas. That's what she asked me to do. 2 bananas. That was my purpose. Now, can you imagine when the emotions, and it affects your whole life, how bad it can be?
Wow.
So that is just the first thing I think of starting. How? What do you think?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well said.
That's my thoughts.
That's a great thought. That's exactly how it happens in life too. You just, people say you are blinded by emotion, whether it's it doesn't always have to be anger, right? You can be blinded by love, or there's things.
That's just an anger one there.
Right? Yeah, there's going to be all sorts of things. Before you know it, you forget the mission. You forget the whole purpose of what you went out there to do. You get distracted by the things that happen along the way.
You don't chase the purpose. You chase the emotion.
Wow. Very well said.
Thank you.
Very well said. I like that a whole lot. Well, my opinion is not going to sound as good. That's really nice. Yeah. I was taking it on a kind of on a different direction. So I guess it is okay. We're coming from 2 different sides of the spectrum here. More often than not, when people talk about managing emotions, usually they take it on like a negative side. And so I wanted to kind of spin it in a different direction and think about in my life how I've seen, let's just find a cool term to give it. I'm going to call it toxic positivity, right?
Okay.
We're looking at things too brightly and too sunshiny, Some of the greatest things that have come in my life have come in the form of scrutiny.
Okay.
We relate a lot of things to martial arts here. You didn't let me slide on a lot of stuff. The older I got and the darker my belts became, you were on me about angles and where my feet are at and how I'm holding up my body and my posture. And, you were meticulously scrutinizing me in a healthy, good way.
Right.
But I learned from you how great scrutiny can be, especially if it's something I want to really do well at. If it's something I really want to be good at, what I have to deal with is the harsh truths that not everything is as good as what I want it to be yet.
Absolutely.
And so when it comes to managing emotions, I would say what I wanted to say was that there are times in life where sometimes it's not all about love, joy, happiness. You know what I mean? Because we
Right.
can be blinded by that.
Absolutely.
And we can lose sight of the things that may not be positive. They're negative in some ways, but they do a positive thing. They help us.
Right.
You know, that scrutiny helps you in the long run. But in the beginning, as it comes, it might not sound that good in the moment, you know? So that's kind of the direction I was going. Managing emotions is sometimes the positivity can get in the way.
I mean, we could do a series of 20, 20
sure.
podcasts on this. It's so-
Absolutely.
you know, people most of the time, they just want you to understand. I have to use the school, but, you know, an adult might come to me and say, I'm upset. I've been trying to do this technique. I can't get the choke. I can't get the lock. I can't get the judo throw. I'm having a hard time. And I told you a long time ago, and this is not insincere. This is very sincere, but there's 3 words that I use: feel, felt, and found.
Right.
Somebody comes to me and they're upset. They want to know that I understand. So we say, first thing I always say is, I understand how you feel. You know, I felt the same way. I felt exactly the same way. And they're like, oh, really?
Right.
So I felt the same way. I couldn't get a technique. It took me a year to get it. But I'll tell you what I found. We'll find a solution for it. Next week when you come to class, I'll put you with Sensei Law and Advanced Black Belt or another one of the black belts, and we'll work on it. So now they're like, wow. First thing happens is now they breathe in oxygen. Because it's more of it's like petting a puppy. It really is. You know, it's okay. It's like giving them, like petting a puppy, I feel like. And you're like, wow. Then they feel better about themselves. You understand how I feel. You felt the same way. And now there's a solution.
Right.
Problem solved.
Right.
Emotion is changed.
Yes,
It
sir.
never stays the same. So next week when they come in, we fix it and stuff. That's how I think about emotions at the school. And it happens all the time. It's going to happen to you. I'm sure it already has.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
somebody comes in and you get a little upset because they can't get a technique down.
Right.
You know?
You're exactly right. And I guess you solid point there. It's one of those things where people don't want to feel alone. You know,
Right.
they don't want to feel like they're the only one struggling through a problem. You know, they don't always necessarily want you to struggle too, although I'm sure it happens. But they
Yeah.
just want to know that somebody else has been there. You know, sometimes I spent a lot of time, especially before I was married and had kids and stuff. I would spend a lot of time just with a sword. You know, you've taught me in the Japanese sword for many years, and there have been nights where I'm sitting there practicing, and I get so overwhelmed by what I'm trying to do. You know, and you sit there and you're just like, man, I just can't get this thing right. I just can't get it right. And a lot of times, I would take solace in knowing that you did the same thing. I know that he probably had the same issue. You know, at some point in time in his life, he probably had that sword in his hand and was like, wow, I'm giving it the best I got. And it's just not happening today, you know? And I took solace in that.
Yeah.
And actually, I liked it. I liked that feeling of knowing that I know you had gone through something similar, but look at him now, you know?
Right.
And if I can do the same thing and work hard, maybe one day I can be half that good, you know?
On the flip side, the hardest thing for me years ago, I mean, when I was training, sometimes 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day sometimes, I would work on a technique and I would ask my instructor and he would tell me to do this. I said, okay. So 2 weeks later, I'd say, is this what you were talking about? No, do it this way. It was totally different. And I was like, I get a little aggravated. And then I would ask him a month later, he said, well, no, do it this way. And he would change the ways he would tell me. This one certain instructor. And it's because he was never taught how to teach. You know, he maybe wasn't taught or he didn't know. I don't know the circumstance. But it was always a different answer. Because I was listening, I did exactly what he said. Not that I was going to be as good as him, but he would change something I would do 100 times. I would do it over and over, and he would always change it. And that gets a little bit,
Right.
a bit hard. With you and people at our school, it was always consistent.
Yes.
Because we always have meetings. We always talk to the assistant instructors. We said, let's teach this way, this way, this way. If you don't know, come ask
Right.
us. You know, that way all the information out there. And that's why I think a lot of times you have less emotions out on the floor.
You're
than
very
most
right on
schools.
that. Yeah, you're right. That's a very good point.
I mean, there's a lot of good schools out there, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I'm not saying that by
Right.
no means.
Yeah, you're very right. That's a very good point. And you know what? People often carried that type of I hate to keep always using the word vibe or energy, but that type of persona, that type of attitude that you had on the floor, or your assistant instructor, especially when I was young, I'd first get in there. A lot of them would say, "Oh man, when I first learned that technique, I was so confused by this, But I'll tell you what, the hardest part for me was this move here, and then eventually I figured it out.
Right.
And, somebody taught me this, and you can be like, okay, it was hard for him too. I'm not the only one. I'm not struggling alone here. That feel felt found goes a really long way.
Now, outside the dojo, just everyday life, we strive to be a certain way, or I
Right.
do. I mean, I got good neighbors on one side, good neighbors on the other side, and I truly strive to be a good neighbor. I'll go out of my way. Now, it doesn't mean I won't stand up for what I believe. I'll
Sure.
stand up against anybody for what I believe and my morals and values. But, you strive to be that good neighbor. That's where sometimes emotions get a little different because everybody has different thought
Right.
process. They might not good, bad, or indifferent. They just have a different one. They might have a different one. People behind me, people across the street, they're different than us.
Right.
Those emotions sometimes are hard. I mean, you might be outside cutting the grass, and somebody's like, "Your lawnmower's too loud." Well,
I can't change that.
I can't change that.
I'm sorry.
They're having a bad day more likely,
Right.
But those kind of emotions sometimes, when they just come from nowhere, they kind of blindside you a little bit.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. That's always a tricky thing. You're very right. And that's the emotions there. Maybe I think it just comes a little bit with age, because when I was younger, I didn't understand that. When you're young, you just go, "Well, this is the right way," and you're just wrong. Everybody's
There's no way I'm doing it.
Exactly. Everyone's wrong except for me. And you get older, and that kind of changes around, hopefully. But yeah, it's so funny. I ran into a situation today, actually, just like that. So I'll spare everybody the details. But somebody said something. Someone who I love and respect said it to me, and I was like, "Man, I respect what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying." And he was more or less telling me what he thought I was doing that he wasn't right on it. He said, I'm not going to do it the way you want to do it. He was being very calm, very respectful about it, and he was just respectfully saying, I'm going to go my life in this direction. You do yours like this. And it's never a fun conversation. You know what I mean? It's never fun because you look at it and you're like, wow, I really like this person, and I thought we would get along very, very well.
Yeah.
But we just came to this mutual place, he and I, where we're just like, okay, this is just the way it's going to go. And I think we both handled our emotions very well in that scenario, where you look at it and it's just, difference is just difference, You might like your corn on the cob with more salt, and I like mine with a little more pepper. No need to fight over it. We're still eating corn. It's really not that big of a deal, We're just get
How
our
about
separate
you at
pieces.
work with your customers? You have run into that?
Oh goodness, yeah, I have a lot, and a lot of times it's kind of similar to what you've dealt with the lawnmower that you were talking about a second ago. Is that, you do try to live a certain type of way. We all fall short of the,
Sure.
Everybody does that all the time. We're all filthy rags, right? But when we get out there and we do our best all the time, it's never fun when people don't know that about you,
Right.
And unfortunately, the world we live in, some people take advantage of people. And, I go into some places and they say, man, I've had this contractor here. I've had this inspector here. This guy tells me one thing. This guy tells me another. Can't nobody do me right. I'm already $300 into this job and nobody's got the problem fixed yet. And I'm sitting there with my tool bag like, I just got here, man.
My name's Bronson.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I promise I'm an honest person,
Come on, Mom.
It's tricky because you're catching, I call it strays. You're catching stray bullets from, I'm not a part of this fight. I just came here to help, The thing is, though, is that, I do my best to remember. It's never fun, it's not a good, fun situation, but you do try to remember that those bullets weren't for me.
Right.
That was for somebody else. They aimed that for somebody else. I just happened to be in the way and got hit with them.
Sure.
And so, you just try to do the right thing. And now I have to manage my emotions. I can easily just reciprocate that back at you and we're going to have a bad time.
Right.
But, you try to understand, like, okay, that was rude. And then you go up there and you give it your best shot. And you get to come down and say, hey, I took care of you today. I'll take you step by step of what I
It
did.
turns out most of the time that's a nice guy. A lot of times he's a nice guy. He got upset.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You're so right on that. I'll be there for 3 or 4 hours. They're downstairs. They've had time to let that stew simmer a little bit. And usually I get a cash tip from those people, as they see somebody who came in and really took the time
Emotions
to
are
do the work.
temporary.
Emotions are temporary. It's very well said.
That's what it is.
Very well said. Pool Mike comes in. How are you doing today, sir?
Say, Mike, how you doing?
Ooh, what do you think is the strongest human emotion?
Love.
Love? Yeah?
Yeah. I don't even think about that one.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one for me. Love is up there for sure. It's very, 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 very far up there. But I think fear is pretty strong, you know? I think both of them can drive people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, you know?
Yeah.
Love made me a responsible person. I didn't
Well,
think I'd
just
ever be that.
I mean, everybody thinks different, but I mean,
Sure.
we've been married for a bunch of years, me and Miss Altry, and I do. I love her to death. There's not one thing in the world I wouldn't do for her. You know, I'd give my life for her. I would, if I had to go hands on somebody, you know, mess with her, and no problem.
Right.
I wouldn't even think about it. You
Sure.
know, yeah. To me, it'd be love. It'd be the strongest. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love's definitely up there. That's for sure. Perhaps it's something that I've only done so much for it so far.
Right.
You know, every day I go to work for my family because I love them.
Right.
You know, every day I make sacrifices for them, and you know, say no to something, say yes to others for the good of the family, the whole structure, because I love them.
Good question, Mike.
Very good question. This is fun here. But I think in my life I've done more for fear than I have out of love, truly. And it's not a bad thing. What I mean is you know, you save up money instead of spending it. Why? Well, I'm scared my roof's going to collapse in on me. You know what I mean? I want to have something set to the side where I can get that flat tire taken care of, or, you know, patch up the roof if I need to, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe fear is not the right word for that, you know, but maybe you're just doing what you need to do to take care of the future. But I feel like a lot of that things that I have done in my life is 'cause I'm trying to avoid something bad happening, you know? I lock my door at night because I don't want somebody coming in the house, you know, that type of thing.
But let's say I was in your shoes.
Sure.
And I had money saved up, and I've got a little baby sitting there, and I got my wife sitting there. You know, I'm not going to do your example. Let's just make fictitious. You know. And somebody came to me and said, hey, your baby's sick. She needs to go to the hospital, and you got no insurance. It's going to cost you every penny you got in your bank. You wouldn't think twice
Of
about it,
course.
you know.
Absolutely.
So that, to me, it's just love. Just is just strong. You know. I mean, I do. I love God. I just love God to death, and I'm thankful to be on this earth every day. And my dad just drilled that into me when I was young. You know, and just love people. You know, and like I say, people. It's not that you're a wimp, you're a sissy. Like I say, I'm not scared. I'll stand up in a heartbeat. I don't care if he's 300 pounds.
I've seen it.
I've stood up against 300-pound men before.
sir.
It didn't bat an eye. It don't bother me. But it's a last resort.
Yes, sir.
You know, I just that's the way I feel. And not that it's right or wrong. Everybody's different.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just like that salt pepper.
Yeah, salt and pepper, exactly. Love's definitely a tough one, though. I mean, that's a strong contender in my book. And I imagine...
Because everything comes back to love.
It does.
If you got a bunch of money, your glass in there, you love that money.
I sure do, yeah. Right. And if I didn't love the family or love, you know, the life that I've got, I wouldn't have to take the time to do it.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. See, this is one great thing about this podcast is that I get to just a new perspective. You know what I mean? To get to see what salt's like on the corn, you know, just to keep that kind of running there a little bit. Mr. Ben Hunter says,
Hey, Ben. How you doing, buddy?
Very nice to see you, my friend. Ben Hunter says, is anger the hardest emotion to deal with? Ooh. I can go first on that one if you want me
You
to.
go ahead, because I got 10 things on
Sure.
this one.
For me, it was. I tell this to people a lot.
I can vouch for that.
Yes, sir. When I try to feel, felt, found type of thing, I can't use feel, felt, found and be honest for someone who says that they're struggling with depression or anxiety.
Right.
I've just never felt it.
Right.
I've even said before.
And I wouldn't use it then either.
No, sir. I would love to. I shouldn't say I would love to, but I've said before that if I could pay $1 or $2 just to feel what that feels like for just 60 seconds, just so I can better understand it, because it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
A lot of people deal with it. Whether post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, for people who are police officers, military, whatever. You know, I would love just for a minute, just to have a better understanding of what they're going through. I'd take it. But for me, Mr. Ben, anger was, whew, buddy, that was a tough one. That was a really, really tough one. And for me, it wasn't necessarily a emotion that would pop up. It was an emotion that I constantly had a lid on. You know, it's like you have a pot on the stove, and you ever cook spaghetti sauce on the stove? When it gets too warm, it'll start popping. You'll have spaghetti sauce everywhere. And my life was like that. There was spaghetti sauce everywhere. And so what I thought was the right idea was to put a lid on it, and you wouldn't have spaghetti sauce all over the place. And it was through a lot of good people's prayers and your hard work and just sticking with me that I finally realized the lid ain't fixing it. You got to turn the heat on the stove down.
Because the lid's going to stuff all over.
Turn the heat down.
Right.
So for me, Mr. Ben, it certainly was the hardest one.
I had a temper, I guess, when I was young, 16, 17, 18. I guess a lot of guys do. I mean, it wasn't out of control, but it was, it was kind of bad. But the more that I trained and did stuff, it just got better, I think, because I got martial arts at 16 years old, which is 52 years ago. So, it just got better and better and better because it was just different. You look at things different. So I was lucky. Had I not maybe got into the arts early, it might have been different for me, But just being in the arts helped me a lot. It helped me a whole lot. So.
Yeah. It definitely helped me too, that's for sure. We got a couple of hellos and hi's from everybody. Mr. Tab Hunter says, "Hola, people." How you doing, Mr. Tab? Hope you've had an excellent Tuesday today, sir. I know the weather was beautiful for your type of work. DJ Para says, "Hey, yo." Hey there, DJ Para. Thanks for coming in. And then Pool Mike says, "I think it odd that both love and rage can make a person do crazy things. ... I think Ben is right about anger. Pool Mike thinks it's the hardest one to deal with."
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right too. Is that these things can make you do crazy things.
Yeah.
Even love will make you do crazy things.
Sure.
Yeah, if you went back in a time machine and told me, hey, you'd go to work every single day for 10, 12 hours a day, you wouldn't have a great time there, but you do it anyway out of love. Like, no, you got the wrong guy.
Wrong guy, wrong word.
Not me.
I got a word, but it ain't love.
I wouldn't do that, And so it does make you do things you wouldn't expect you would do,
Did you ever see anybody on our floor? You were there for, 12 years? Mm-hmm. The adult class, not the junior class.
Right.
But did you ever see anybody lose their temper?
Ooh. No.
I didn't either.
No. And it's obvious no, thinking about grand scheme of things. But I'm even trying to think about just in a personal one-on-one privately. Mm-hmm. No, not at all.
Never. Nobody ever lost their temper. Nobody tried to strike back at them because we were family, and you feel love in that thing.
Right.
At our black belt test, you'd have these 280-pound guys crying.
Yes.
I've seen them crying; they couldn't even talk.
Yes.
I've seen them crying like a baby.
Yes.
Because the emotions the emotions came down with getting that belt. They've tested. They've been there 5 years.
Right.
Going through hard stuff to get that first black belt after 5 years, and they get up there and they will start talking and all. I had actually, Ms. Alter and I were talking about this, I think it was today or yesterday. We had this little boy, he was, I don't know, he's like 13, 14 years old, maybe 15. Cool kid. And his mom always brought him to class. She brought him day after day after day. He was there, and so at a black belt test, he wanted to do a Japanese sword.
Cool.
And I said, okay, so we do our sword, and we put some music on, and we went over this with him for about 2 or 3 months. And the day before he went out to do this black belt test, there was going to be a lot of people there. Right. His mom was going to be sitting on the front row. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't you take a rose, put it inside your gi top.
Oh.
When you get through, because he was going to use her favorite song.
Cool.
I said, when you get through doing your sword, walk over in front of everybody and take the rose out and give it to your mom and give her a hug.
Wow.
He just busted out crying. He said, sir, I couldn't do that. I'm crying now. I couldn't cry. I couldn't do that. I would cry.
Wow.
Talking about emotions. Mm-hmm. But it was just the love he had,
right.
For the martial arts and for his mom and stuff. And that, I'll never forget that.
That
I lived to be 130.
Cool.
I will never forget that. He was crying right there. Ms. Ultra was there. He's
wow.
like, I could never do that. I'm trying my best to talk him into it. I thought it'd be cool,
yeah.
But,
wow.
Yeah, talk about emotion.
That is so cool. I tell you what, I guess I'm biased because I have a deep-rooted love and passion for martial arts, but I'll tell you, it's and you know this better than anybody, is that it's hard to do that for so long and not not come out that way.
Yeah.
You know, it has a very cool thing about martial arts. It somehow breaks you down and builds you up at the same time. You just, a lot of ego and things that you thought great about yourself, you learn, you're like, man, that's, you know,
No ego.
yeah, it is. And it just, it's amazing. You become humbly confident, confidently humble.
That's it.
It's really weird. It's maybe that'll be a good topic one day.
Yeah. I think Paul Mike was telling me the other day he had a few topics he wanted to throw at us, and I'm like,
sure.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody got topics, throw at us.
Yeah, so
we're running out of topics.
at the end of these videos, and you could probably do it right now as well, you can leave a comment on the bottom of it, and that's permanent. What's in the live chat right here is always temporary, but you can always leave a comment at the end of the video or whenever. It can happen tomorrow. You're like, oh, you know what? This would be a fun little conversation. And you get to come in here and talk to us about it yourself and whatever you think about it. So it's not just to hear us yap. You also get to be a part of it as well. And it's been a lot of fun so far. Yeah. And I think we were talking earlier about maybe going around to a few places locally and maybe doing some fun little podcasts in some places around town.
Road trips.
Yeah, some road trips. Yeah, maybe go grab a bite to eat together.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some cool places in the area that we live. It's some of them have been on TV before, you know, the Food Network channel and stuff. So we got some cool little places around town. Be nice to hang out and just have a conversation.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be really, really cool. Yeah. Wow. Sir, that was a fun conversation. That was a very, very fast 30 minutes.
It's been 30 minutes.
Yes, sir. We're about...
Ms. Ultra said that's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it is Ms. Ultra. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Guys, you know, we appreciate you guys watching in and stuff. This is what we do all the time. I mean, we'll sit here. We just got through working out an hour in the garage, and now we're sitting over here. We turn these mics off and turn the camera off in a minute. We'll sit here for another 45 minutes, have a piece of apple pie, and just talk. That's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, sir, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I want to take a second to thank everybody that's out there, whether you're chatting, just lurking, or just listening in the background while you get your house settled in. It means the world to us that you'd be able to come out here and hang out with us on a Tuesday evening, and we hope to see you next time.
Sounds good.
All right,
Guys, have a good night.
Have
Thanks,
a great
guys.
rest of your evening.
All right.